All right, so question number 2 reads, how will the preimage shown in the figure be reflected across the y-axis? So a reflection maintains the distance of each of these vertices respective to its axes, right? But it just flips it across a specific axis, okay? So technically speaking, right now we're flipping it across the y-axis, but we can totally flip it across the x-axis. We can even flip it across a line. So reflection means that we flip it across the axis that we choose, but we maintain the distances of the vertices respective to its axis. So what does that mean here? Okay, so we see here on our grid, and I'll try to draw out a grid for you guys too, so we have it all set up together. Let me scoot this over here. Okay, so first of all, let me label my triangle here, okay? So we have vertices 2, -2, so this is going to be 2 here. So this is going to be -2 here. We have -4 and 5, and we have 2, 4, we'll have 5 over here. Okay, so our triangle has vertices of 2, -2. So let me just draw our triangle here. 2, -4, and 5, -3. So in between these two. Okay, so this is 5, and this is -2, -4. Okay, so our triangle looks like this. Excuse my badly drawn lines. I'm pretty bad at drawing. All right. Sure. Cool. So what it means to reflect it is that we're going to move it across the y-axis. So we're going to label our axes too. So x and y here. So we're going to reflect this across the y-axis. Okay, but we have to be wary of the fact that we need to keep each of these vertices at the same relative distance. So you see here that this first vertex here is 2 units away from the y-axis and 2 units away from the x-axis. So if we were to reflect it over, we would have to make sure that it's 2 units away from the x-axis and 2 units away from the y-axis. Okay. So since we're only reflecting across the y-axis, we don't need to worry about changing the y-coordinate. We just need to change the x-coordinate here. So the first vertex is going to be here. Okay. Let's look at the second one. So the second vertex over here, it's also 2 units away from the y-axis, but it's also 4 units away from the x-axis. But since we're flipping it across the y-axis, we only need to be wary of the fact that it's 2 units away from the y-axis. So we're going to put it here at -2 and -4. Finally, we have our last vertex here, which is at -5. So using the same rationale here, we're going to make sure that it is always 5 units away from the y-axis when we're reflecting it. So this is the reflection of that. And this is the triangle that we have. Okay? So this is how you flip or reflect a image across an axis. Okay? So this is what the junior tutor wrote too. So they described what the preimage is and what the reflection means, and they noticed that the fact for reflection that we have to make sure our vertices are in relative distance to the axis itself. So they reflected it across the y-axis and made sure that these 2 points were 2 units away from the y-axis, and this point was 5 units away from the y-axis. Okay, so there is a formula for this, which you just negative the axis that you are changing. So for example, okay, so let's say that you wanted to reflect across the y-axis. So if you want to reflect across the y-axis, then you will have to, so if you want to reflect point xy across the y-axis, and let's name it A, then it will be -xy, right? And we'll do a underscore. Okay, so that's how you reflect across the y-axis. If you were to reflect across the x-axis instead, you will have to be wary of the fact that you have to maintain the distance to the x-axis to be the same. So reflect across the x-axis means that for point B of x equals y, or xy, we have to do a negative y, okay? Excuse me. Okay, so this formula gets a little bit tricky when you're reflecting across a line, but I won't cover that here. But one thing to note when you're reflecting across a line, you have to be sure and wary that all points are the same distance from the line and not from the axis itself. Okay, other than that, I have nothing else to say, and this answer is right, so good job. Your solution is correct. Cool. All right, let's move along to question number 3.